It is 9:59. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The NFL Draft begins 1 week from today in Detroit. Today in NFL news, the LA Chargers are reportedly signing running back J.K. Dobbins on a one-year deal, reuniting the former Baltimore Raven with this former offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. The Nashville Predators' first-round playoff opponent is official. It will be the Vancouver Canucks, who secured the 2 seed in the West on Wednesday after Dallas defeated St. Louis to clinch the 1 seed. Dates and times are yet to be officially determined as the NHL regular season wraps up tonight. In the NBA play-in tournament, the Sixers outlasted the Heat 105-104. They move on to face the Knicks. The Heat still alive and will host the Bulls Friday night, but star Jimmy Butler expected to miss several weeks with an MCL injury. The Chicago Bulls eliminated the Atlanta Hawks with a 131-116 win. Kobe White, a career-high 42 points. Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Braves pulled off the sweep of the Astros, a 5-4 win Wednesday afternoon. They'll host the Rangers in a series starting tomorrow. And the Nashville Sounds walked it off Wednesday with an Isaac Collins base hit to beat the Omaha Storm Chasers 6-5. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Good morning. Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. And today is a beautiful day because we're making some changes around here. Welcome in. I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is making the show happen. Robert Walsh is across from me because this is no longer the Buck Rising Show. It's been a long time coming. And I'll step in here when Buck's on his quote-unquote vacation, when he's going to a wedding or what have you, taking his random days off. But this is for real this time. I've stolen his key card. We've deadbolted the studio door. And Robert Walsh, it's me and you and Jackson Williams for the foreseeable future.
Are you excited?
I am excited.
What's the first order of business? What's the first thing you want to do without Buck in here?
I don't know. I've been plotting this since March 2021, and I haven't even thought about it. I haven't thought about what the first order of business is going to be because I've been so preoccupied with just getting to this point, and we're finally here. Feels good.
It does feel good, but I also want to make it known that I agreed to be on this show if they would double my pay. As you can tell, I have 2 microphones in front of me.
Double the mics, double the pay.
There you go. I was also told that I would not be struck by Buck because last time, most times that I sit in his seat, I'd take a little bit of his shine. He likes to physically assault me, and I was told this time I would not be assaulted. So I should have brought a hard hat. Last time he struck me with a microphone. You called it a boop. I call it a bop, but
you should have brought a hard hat. Always wear a hard hat. Safety first. Join us on the 104.5 The Zone TV, FNM Bank chat, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. We're getting questions. Trippin' Titans saying, just logged in. Did Buck get fired? Yes. Trippin' Titans. He did. He did. And this is what this show is going to be from here on out. So, Robert Walsh, what should we get into this morning? The NFL Draft starts 7 days from today in Detroit. The Titans looking to bring in blue chip players, trying to build a championship foundation that they've added some cornerstone pieces into via free agency. Today, we're going to talk about worst case draft scenarios for the Tennessee Titans. If you had to think of a worst case scenario for just Thursday, we'll just go with the first round, what would come to mind?
Oh, that they don't turn their pick in on time. And then they have to wait until another team gets to pick, and then they lose out on Joe Alt or Malik Neighbors like a Vikings or a Ravens of drafts past. That would be the worst case scenario because then that's the ineptitude of your front office. It's not so much, oh, they picked the wrong player. They didn't pick at all. That would be the worst case scenario for me.
I suppose that would be the worst case scenario. 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in. Not getting the pick in on time. Where are we at with the draft clock? It's 10 minutes, correct?
Which is, it's 9 minutes too long. You know who you're picking. Come on. I know it's so they can sell ads, but in the first round when we have to stay up into the wee hours of the morning, you know who you're picking. You know if you're trading the pick, you've already talked to all these guys, you've already done your research. Stop dragging it out. Turn the pick in. I would love, just for once, when a team, they're on the clock, the pick is in. They don't have to wait at all. Just so I can go to bed before 11:30.
I don't think we should have a draft clock for the number 1 overall pick.
They should just have to pick. I agree with that. Lucas, first day as the head host, and you're coming up with stuff like this? That's gold.
They have been on the clock. How long have the Chicago Bears have been on the clock? I'm trying to think at what point in the season the Carolina Panthers officially clinched being the worst team in the NFL. It was definitely earlier than the very end of the regular season. But the moment the Carolina Panthers clinched the number 1 pick, which in turn clinched the number 1 pick for the Chicago Bears because of that trade that allowed the Panthers to pick Bryce Young number 1 overall. The Bears have been on the clock since that point, so there is absolutely no reason for me to actually have them be on the clock when the NFL draft gets underway.
And when's the last time the first overall pick wasn't a foregone conclusion? Was it the Chiefs when they took, instead of taking, I'm blanking on their names, they took a separate offensive lineman than who was projected to go for, I think it was Luke Jokel, someone else, and they went with Eric Fisher.
Eric Fisher.
So when is the last time the number 1 overall pick has been in question? Because I feel like every year we come in, and you already know who it is. Just get this ball rolling, because that's where the real excitement comes in. That's where your tweets, your engagement, your views, all that jazz starts.
Was it a couple of years ago when Trayvon Walker went number 1 to
Probably.
Jacksonville? Like, is that the last time we went into a draft not having any sort of consensus with the number 1 pick?
But even in that situation, we knew the turmoil that was going on behind the scenes, where it was Trent Baalke really liked Trayvon Walker, another cat really liked whoever the hell else was in that draft. We knew
it was Aiden Hutchinson.
That's right. That's right. We knew the discourse that was going on, and they weren't able to. My whole point is the same as yours. Let's just get the picks on with. Let's get it started. What are we waiting on? We do it right now if you want. Go ahead and just say Caleb Williams, number 1 overall. Save us all a lot of time.
So that's what we're talking about today. Worst case scenario for you, for the Tennessee Titans in the 2024 NFL Draft. 615-737-1045 is the number. The Tape Farm on the F&M Bank chat says, finally the station is giving the people what they want.
No.
Hey, who did this?
How did he? Security!
Jackson, did you let him in?
I've been struck! I've been struck!
Out!
What is in there?
Out!
You only get 1 microphone.
Get out!
You don't get both.
Out!
HR!
This is not okay. This is not okay.
He's broken in.
How did you get in?
What the hell do you think you're doing around here?
How'd you get in here?
What do you mean, how did I get in here? My key card.
Did you pick the lock? Who reactivated your key card?
I'm out of breath.
Who's working against me here? Jackson? Was this you?
I did not reactivate his key card.
Say something.
There's a mole in the
I've got to
building
get
somewhere.
ready. Go ahead. Continue.
Buck, right?
Since you think you're going to be able to do this, go ahead. And like, in case you want to talk more about how long you want the first round pick draft clock to be. That's invigorating stuff. Robert left his, I'm literally actually out of breath. Robert left his phone in here.
Do you like his background?
What is that?
You ever watch? You didn't watch Sopranos, did you?
Oh, that's
Pine Barrens.
The two of them lost.
Yeah, it's Moltisanti and there he is. No, don't throw his phone.
That was rude.
The F&M Bank chat, he said I have an OtterBox as he walked. The F&M Bank chat is beside itself.
Oh, no.
Football Fred says, well, ratings are going to drop now. Typical Mead says Buck ruins everything. D-Tag says no. And nobody seems to be happy about your presence here, so I don't understand what you're doing. Everything was going swimmingly.
Good. You can leave now.
No, I'm in here now.
What do you mean you're in here now?
I'm in here now. This is permanent.
What do you mean?
This is what we're doing. This
Jackson.
is permanent now.
Hey, buddy. You're stuck with us.
Why are you here?
You're stuck with us, bud.
So what do you mean stuck with you?
Forever.
This is permanent.
I don't like this.
You have to look into the whites of my eyes every single day across
Without
from
any
you
glass between
in this
us?
studio. No glass.
Why? Who made this decision?
No more glass.
Did this happen in the 7 minutes that I was late because I stopped to get coffee and then the road that I typically take was actually blocked off today? I was actually late.
You want to know how we got to this point?
Yeah, but this doesn't feel advantageous for you at all
Why is that?
because you've just ceded control. The way that I see it, you can't cut me off anymore with your silly little SEC observations music. You can't turn my microphone off. You have no control over anything that's happening with the show. All you have is your tiny little world over there on that side of the studio. And yet worse, you have to sit even closer to me for 3 hours a day. Jackson, I don't think this works in his benefit at all. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider your position?
You don't think Jackson and I are in cahoots on this?
Yeah, I can always turn your mic off.
Well,
Yes. He's learning.
I don't appreciate that.
You want to know how we got to this point?
Why?
Do you really want to know?
No, not really.
Blackmail. Goes a long way. Gets things done.
So this is actually what I have to deal with? The two of you are going to do this to me every day now?
This is what we do now.
only going to make me be later. Like, I'm just going to, because now I don't have to worry about anything at all.
Yeah, you've got a safety net.
Oh, this is excellent. It all comes back. It all comes full circle. We love to see it. Good morning. Lovely to have you guys with us 10 minutes into the show. Lovely of me to join my own show 10 minutes into the show. It smells of cigarette ash over here, and I don't really appreciate that either. But we'll get to that later on. 615-737-1045 is the number. So you're actually going to sit in here every day, huh?
This is a thing now.
Jackson, you're actually going to be here every day?
Yup.
Does that mean I can get better music?
Potentially, if you're good.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
You have to be a good boy.
Does the somebody says on the YouTube chat, where of course you can interact with the show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, Knocktrop says the graphic stays. What have you done to the graphic?
The graphic is, you'll see it.
Okay. I'm sure I'm going to love that. It says on the phone line, somebody has called in with a worst case. Is that because I'm here?
This is the worst case scenario.
This is the worst possible case scenario for me to actually show up to work today.
I thought we had locked you out. No, we are talking worst case scenarios in the Titans draft in the show today. And maybe I shouldn't be allowed to talk about this because do you remember what mine was last year?
Will Levis.
Yeah.
Which delighted me because that was my best case scenario.
Well, yeah. But
my worst case scenario, do you remember what mine was?
You were playing a different game.
No. Do you remember what mine was?
What your worst case scenario?
What my worst case scenario of the first round of the NFL draft was. Do you remember?
I really don't.
It was Skorowski.
Yeah, that's right. Because your worst case scenario is a lot of Titans fans' best case scenario and vice versa.
That's right. I wanted chaos. I wanted anger. I wanted rage. I wanted good sports talk radio.
Levis was your best case scenario because at the time it was several Titans fans' worst case scenario. Hindsight is 2020. I am glad that Will Levis is playing football for the Tennessee Titans.
Liar.
I'm an idiot and I was wrong. But
I would like that as a drop. Can you do that now? Oh, this is fun. I like this. He has no control over what audio he pulls now. I would like that on the board, please. In fact, can I have a soundboard on my side?
Absolutely not.
That would make me very happy. I think I like this new setup. This is going to work very well for me.
Tony on the FNM Big Chat says, I don't know what's true and what is not true. I have no idea who is calling the shots at this point.
Good.
It's me.
That's actually Jackson at this point. He has the most control over our situation moving forward. So we can talk about that throughout the course of the day, the worst case scenarios. I'll try to play the game the way that Lucas has confined the constructs because he's not creative enough to let me have some fun with it. And you can weigh in if you want to, 615-737-1045. Don't worry, I'm back. It's 1045 The Zone. The future of medicine is here at QC Kinetics. It's the nation's leader in the most exciting revolution in pain management we've seen in decades. Regenerative medicine. If you're tired of achy joints, if your joint pain is keeping you from doing what you love, you need to call QC Kinetics right now. Surgery, steroids, drugs, these are no longer your best options. Regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is transforming lives with innovative treatments that deliver lasting results. We're talking natural biologics using your body's own power to repair and restore damaged tissue. QC Kinetics is under the leadership of National Medical Director Dr. Mitchell Shinecup. Dr. Shinecup is a pioneer in this field with 20 years of clinical work, tons of research, teaching, and publishing. He wants to get you relief with a needle and not a knife. So call QC Kinetics now and learn more about some exciting options. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Everybody has been relegated, I guess, to their normal roles. Again, a lingering scent of cigarette ash in the studio, and I'm not quite sure why we can't get rid of it.
What is that?
I just told you, it's cigarette ash. And if it gets any closer to me under the console, I'm going to kick it right in the face.
You see chairs moving as he shuffles under.
It's like a Jaws
Is there a
scene.
ghost in here? There's chairs moving.
Get out! Shadows.
This is really how we get you
just
fired.
came out of the shadows.
This is really how we get you fired because he prompts you to say a cuss word or something, and Jackson
Listen,
stays away from the dump button.
Of the four of us, I'm the safest that way, which is not something that I think people would have had on their bingo cards. Either way, order is restored. We can continue on with the radio show. We are talking about worst case draft scenarios for the Titans, and we have an exercise that we stole from Ramon, Kayla, and Will, because we don't do anything creatively on our own. We just steal things from other people, and it works for us. So we will steal their exercise that they did yesterday about a championship foundation formula.
Well,
and
are
where
we
the
stealing
Titans
it?
kind of grade out in this. At least let me get through the damn thing before you start talking.
Who are we really stealing it from, though?
Oh, well, they stole it from the NFL Network.
Right.
We are stealing it third hand
Right.
from Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Either way, it's a stolen commodity. Nothing in sports talk is original. This is how this thing continues to just cycle on and on like a dinosaur. Just, the comet's getting closer every day. But still, we survive, and we put together lists.
As long as we
Sports Talk
attribute
Radio is.
properly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But them's the breaks.
Thank you, Boris. So, if you want to jump in, you can. 615-737-1045 is the number. D is in Nashville up first.
Hey, yeah. The worst case scenario, I'm just trying to be funny. If the Titans drafted a kicker in the first round, that's all.
Well, that would be bad.
That's all.
Thank you for putting a lot of thought into that, D. We appreciate it. Well, it's not like Bert's was any better. Bert said is they just forget to turn in the time card or the pick card or whatever. So let's, well, now, would it actually be the worst case scenario? Like, if they Roberto Aguayo'd this thing and took a kicker in the second round for all the kicker struggles that they've had, Nick Folk is damn near 40, even though they brought him back, and he was very, very accurate last year, save one critical missed extra point and one critical missed field goal that I can account for off the top of my head, particularly that game against the Colts. Would it be the worst thing in the world if the Titans drafted, let's just say drafted, not first round, not second round, but if they took a kicker with one of 6 picks that they have at their disposal, would it actually be the worst case scenario? I don't think so.
With one of their picks.
A later
No.
pick.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it worst case scenario. Who is the best kicker in this draft?
It's probably the Missouri kid, right?
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name off the top of my head.
Oh, he was a great long-range kicker, but I don't know who. I'm going to check who Dane Brugler has as his number one specialist. It's Will Reichert of Alabama.
AJ Parkinson says, if they pick a right guard, well, no, that wouldn't be a worst case scenario at all.
At 7?
I'm not necessarily in love, given the tackle situation, but like if they traded back out of 7 and they drafted a guard in the first round, would that be so upsetting to people? Did you see what all the guards just got paid? Robert Hunt just got $100 million from the Carolina Panthers. You know why? Because Jeff Simmons is making $25 million a year, because Chris Jones is making $32 million a year, because the interior defensive linemen are as good as they've ever been. If anything, it makes you feel better about spending a pick, the 11th overall pick on a guard last year. I'd be fine. If they traded back to like with the Vikings in this quarterback situation, Vikings sitting at 11, I'm not saying there's a guard that's Peter Skoronski necessarily.
I would not want a guard with the first round pick.
I think I'm okay with that. A scenario. It's certainly not the worst case scenario to me. We can work our way through this. So, speaking of stolen exercises, let's take a look at what Daniel Jeremiah put forth for the Move the Sticks podcast a couple of months ago. Now, saw the morning show did this yesterday, and I thought that we might have some different perspectives on these things, so it was worth taking a look at. This is from at Move the Sticks on Twitter. We are doing a fun series on the podcast looking at championship foundation for every team based on this formula. 1 quarterback, 3 offensive playmakers, so that could be 2 wide receivers and a running back. It could be a running back, a tight end, a wide receiver, however you want to classify 3 offensive playmakers, 3 quality offensive linemen, 2 pass rushers, 3 defensive playmakers. And he uses the Dolphins as an example. So if you took, let's just apply this, Lucas. I don't know if you have the graphic in front of you or not, do you?
Yes.
If the standard for DJ's grades here are blue chip, green, meaning good, yellow, meaning concern. So those concerns could be age, those concerns could be injury, those concerns could be a bloated contract figure or an expiring deal in the case of, let's just say, DeAndre Hopkins. And then pink, which is the classification for unproven or just a rookie. How many players do you think the Titans have on their roster that you could legitimately call blue chip caliber players? Because just as the example that he's got on his Twitter timeline for the Dolphins, he's got 3. Tyreek Hill, Javon Holland, and Jalen Ramsey. I could make the argument that there's only 2 truly blue chip caliber players on the Titans roster right now, and that's after the free agency period.
Is your argument DeAndre Hopkins and Jeffrey Simmons?
No.
Jeffrey Simmons is one of them.
Jeff Simmons is one of them. And I could make the argument for 3, but I wouldn't put Hop in there.
Is it Ridley?
No, it's Snead.
Oh, Snead, yes.
Snead coming off an all-pro snub that I think the entire league can agree upon. Coming off his second straight Super Bowl championship, coming off a year where he was as impactful as any defender on one of the league's best defenses. L'Jarius Snead is a legitimate blue chip player. He's 26, 27, right in that range. Jeff's a little older, but not by much. And their contract situations are figured out. They're healthy by all accounts, even though, I know people have questions about L'Jarius Snead's knees. He's addressed that, and until it becomes a problem, it's not a problem for me. The third blue chip player that I'd make the argument for, and I went back and forth on this, is Lloyd Cushenberry. He's the best available center. How many legitimately blue chip caliber centers in the NFL can you name off the top of your head right now?
I'm trying to think who was first team All-Pro last season.
It's a tougher exercise than I think. In fact, Jackson, can you pull up the All-Pro list from last season, the first team All-Pro list? He'll let us know when he's got it back there, and we'll have him go down the list.
Kelsey.
And he's retired.
Yeah.
So if you take Jason Kelsey out of the equation, the most famous center by any stretch of the imagination is Lloyd Cushenberry, not one of the best, you could argue the best available center right now for where he is in his career, his age, contract situation figured out, no health concerns. I could argue if I wanted to that Lloyd Cushenberry is a blue chip player. Jackson, let me hear the first team All-Pro team from last season, please.
Quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Running back, Christian McCaffrey. Fullback, Kyle Juszczyk. Tight end, George Kittle. Receivers, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Left tackle, Trent Williams. Left guard, Joe Thuney. Center, Jason Kelsey. Right guard, Zach Martin. Right tackle, Penei Sewell.
Okay. How many other centers in the NFL could you name right now? Like Creed Humphrey comes to mind immediately.
Mitch Morse, who is still a free agent?
No, he signed a short-term deal.
Jacksonville, right?
He's in Jacksonville. There's a handful of players that have been drafted in the last couple of years, but the point is there's not that many famous, at least famous centers that you could name just generally unless you're actively studying the interior offensive line market, and there were only a handful of centers that were available anyway for us to pay attention to, Lloyd Cushenberry being the undisputed best one out of the bunch, and they gave him the most guaranteed money that a center's ever gotten.
Ryan Kelly is up there in Indianapolis.
There's a couple. So, if I gave you 2 or 3 blue chip players, do you agree with that assessment? Hopkins, going to be 32. Ridley, by the end of the season, will be 30. Levis, Spears, Pollard, Skoronski. And on defense, Amani Hooker is he would be a green player for me, a good player, but not a outright blue chip player. Even though he is versatile, he's got a lot of things that you like about his game. He's going to make life a lot easier on you. And he was healthy last year, which was a struggle after he got the contract.
So I think we go on offense first, just starting 11.
Sure. So again, the formula for people paying attention: quarterback, 3 offensive playmakers, 3 quality offensive linemen. Let's start there. The quarterback, Will Levis, is he a blue chip prospect, a good prospect, a prospect that you have age, injury, or contract concerns about? I shouldn't call them prospects, but a player, or an unproven player?
Unproven.
Will Levis
He's pink.
is pink. So then to the playmakers. Now, for our purposes, do you want to pick Tajay Spears or Tony Pollard? Because those are two different classifications, I think, personally.
I almost want it to be Tajay / Pollard.
You can do that because they've done that with the Dolphins. They've done Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert because that's how most of the league does it. So you're cheating a little bit.
Very similar, though. Achane going into his second year like Spears. Mostert, NFL veteran like Pollard.
So we go DeAndre Hopkins. We go Calvin Ridley. We go the combination of Pollard and Spears. Is D-Hop blue chip, green, yellow, or pink?
Green.
You think green?
Solidly green.
Solidly green.
Yes, DeAndre Hopkins is the best player on this offense after the departure of Derrick Henry. You can make an argument for Lloyd Cushenberry in his respective position, but DeAndre Hopkins is green. I'd have a hard time arguing against that.
I think it's an easier argument than Ridley, for example, who I might, I think you could argue both of them. Now, maybe I'll err on the side of caution. And it's the same conversation we had around D-Hop last year. Is there any reason to do it after he puts up 1,000 yards and 75 receptions and 7 touchdowns? Maybe not. And he played in all 17 games to his credit. But anytime you have a wide receiver over the age of 30, he's on an expiring contract, Lucas. Now, Jimmy White was on 3HL. I don't know if you caught that and said that there's reason to believe that Hopkins might be back in 2025. That's consequential. I don't think Wyatt just puts that out there. So... But if he doesn't have a contract extension right now, and he is a 32-year-old wide receiver, or will be a 32-year-old wide receiver, I could make the argument, if I wanted to, for yellow.
It's like the Snead thing, though. Snead with the knee injury. It's not a concern until it is, right? It's not a concern until it affects his play.
Sure.
That's how I feel about DeAndre Hopkins. The drop-off has not happened yet, so I'm not concerned about the drop-off until I see signs that DeAndre Hopkins is really dropping off as a high-level wide receiver.
And there was no evidence of that last year. And again, he was available, to his credit. That's the first time he's played a full season in quite some time, but still. His injuries a couple of years ago have not consequentially changed who he is. There's a little bit of a drop-off. Your athleticism is going to depreciate as you get into your 30s, but he's got, as we talked about, he's got a style of play that's going to lend itself well to aging. So I'm down for D-Hop as green. If I really wanted to push it, I could make the argument for yellow. It's not a hill that I'm willing to die on.
High Octane on the F&M Bank chat says turquoise for DeAndre Hopkins.
All right. Enough.
In all seriousness,
we're going to find out that Jackson's colorblind or something like that in the middle of this.
He also says D-Hop's play style does not rely on athleticism like you're talking about. High Octane says, I can see his prime extending like Larry Fitzgerald.
I would agree with that comparison. In fact, I like that comparison a lot. So I am good with D-Hop green. Now, Ridley is an interesting case because he is also close to 30, not 30 yet. And he had the line at his press conference about, I got the body of a 25-year-old. He's not played 2 additional seasons, which is consequential. I mean, it's like Richie Incognito, and that was, a little different. But he missed a full year and then came back as an all-pro because your body feels better after not getting the bleep kicked out of it for an entire season as an offensive lineman. So there's some credence there. But he was a part of an underperforming unit. He did still reach 1,000 yards, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, still was a productive player, but it wasn't perfect for him last year. Is 2 years off of football enough for you to move off of the green position, or is Calvin Ridley a known enough commodity, even now, after having that season under his belt, that you're willing to restore him, I think, from pink last year? I would have said Calvin Ridley pink definitively last year, to green this year. Are you feeling confident enough about that after the sample size of the Jacksonville Jaguars offense?
Yeah, Calvin Ridley's green. He's the best wide receiver on the market, not counting Mike Evans, who just stays in Tampa and wasn't really an option for other teams. Calvin Ridley firmly in the green for me.
All right, so 1 pink, 2 greens, now the combination of the running backs. Now, if we'd have picked just Spears, I would have gone pink.
Yeah.
If we're doing the combo of the two of them, I'm agreeing on that.
Yeah, me too.
Feeling pretty good about the Titans offense so far, even if the most unproven commodity on the offense is the most important commodity on the offense, which is the quarterback. Now we'll wrap up the offense, and we'll carry this exercise into the second hour. Maybe we'll do the defense coming up next, and then maybe by the third hour, Lucas will determine how far the Titans are away from a championship caliber roster here.
No love for special teams in this championship foundation graphic by Daniel Jeremiah.
It should matter though, because special teams is getting ready to change. The kickoff rule is huge. You're going to have actual returns again in the NFL, and that can impact games. So it's not irrelevant.
There's another category we're not talking about, and that's red, which is non-existent.
I'm getting to that. Do the Titans have 3 quality offensive linemen?
No.
Correct. Do the Titans have 2 quality offensive linemen?
Right now, I'd argue no.
Lloyd Cushenberry, I'll go blue. I'll go blue. Based on what the center looks like right now, I'm willing to go from green to blue on Lloyd Cushenberry in the quality offensive lineman discussion. Peter Skoronski would be considered in this exercise a quality offensive lineman. He did not play like that last year. I understand there were mitigating circumstances. I don't understand how hard it is to have an appendectomy in season to try and maintain your strength and conditioning after the surgical procedure and to play on the league's worst offensive line next to the league's worst left tackle. So it's going to make you look a lot worse. I'm assuming Peter Skoronski is going to have as big a year 1 to year 2 leap as anybody on that roster. And I feel pretty good about that as a projection. But it is solidly a projection. He was a rookie offensive lineman on the league's worst offensive line, and he looked like it. In the same way as I'm unsure of Will Levis, even after having seen a big enough sample size, maybe not a big enough sample size, enough of a sample size for us to at least get a baseline for him. I think that I would have to stay with pink on Skoronski. I don't know yet on Peter.
That's fair.
Feel pretty good about it.
It's fair for him to be in the same category as Will Levis, that there should be optimism there. And Peter Skoronski looks like he belongs in the NFL. But to act like he is firmly in the green as a high-quality left guard in this league already,
not yet.
You can't say that yet.
Not yet. Not based on last year's performance. I'm completely fine with the optimism around him. I don't want to act like I'm discouraging Titans fans from liking the idea of Peter Skoronski at left guard. I'm just saying, TBD. It's okay.
So if you need 3 quality offensive linemen,
they don't have them.
1 in the blue in Cushenberry, 1 in the pink, unproven in Skoronski, and then we're going red with the third.
Yeah, non-existent. Brunskill is not that. NPF is not that. Jalen Duncan is not that. The new guy, forgive me, his name, Leroy Watson, who they just traded for.
Sadiq Charles.
Swing guys at best if they work out. And Sadiq Charles, I think, has been a little bit underperforming to date in his career, though it's, again, a small sample size.
And draft pick TBD.
But he's not on the roster yet.
Yeah.
So I can't give them a player that they don't have, because if we get to 7 and then all of a sudden it's Malik Neighbors, it's a completely different discussion. Or whomever. That may not be Joe Alt, even though Joe Alt has been staring them in the face for the better part of 6 months now. So Titans don't have a third quality offensive lineman. That's a big old red mark in the middle of their offense. Now, the formula, again, the way that NFL Network and Daniel Jeremiah have put it together, 1 quarterback, 3 offensive playmakers, 3 quality offensive linemen. So we have pink for Levis. We have 3 greens for the offensive playmakers. Feel pretty good about that. We have a blue in Lloyd Cushenberry, another pink in Peter Skoronski, and a fat old red sitting there for a need to be addressed later in a week from now, 7 days from now when the NFL draft goes down.
So you're talking about if Skoronski clicks into the green this season and a rookie left tackle even gets anywhere close to that green range.
And Levis takes a consequential step.
You feel good. The problem is none of this accounts for depth.
No.
And they're not deep at any of these spots.
I could argue that the offensive line is, as at least populated as it's ever been. I don't know if any of them are any good.
It's numerically deep.
There are many players in the offensive line room right now.
There are humans there.
There are physical bodies that we can name, yes. Whether any of them can play worth a damn, we will at some point in this season find out. And if Bill Callahan can make the best out of them. But all that to say, it's a projection. You don't even have the draft in the books yet. And you feel pretty good about Levis and Skoronski taking meaningful steps. I like where the Titans offense is at right now, but to Lucas's point, the season has never been longer, both the playoffs and the regular season. You need to have depth that you trust. Right now, the Titans have, I don't know, I feel okay about Mason Rudolph. Don't feel great about Mason Rudolph, but I feel okay about it if he has to come in and play a game or two.
I mean, how many teams in the NFL feel great about their backup quarterback?
Not many.
The Raiders, right? Pay up for Gardner Minshew.
Little ass boy.
Right, and he's making him T-shirts. He's leaning
Friday
in.
Fire. Well done by him.
But it's okay to feel okay about your backup quarterback.
It is okay to feel okay about your backup quarterback. So we'll take your phone calls on this coming up next. We'll get into the defense in the second hour, and then by the third hour, we'll determine whether the Titans are much closer than we all might have thought to a championship caliber roster. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
So Robert Walsh just walked into this studio here at 104.5 The Zone, and he asked us, he said, what am I hungry for? And I had an answer for him. The answer is Hattie B's. So Robert's on his way to Hattie B's right now, and it's 10:42. Most Hattie B's at one of their 6 locations, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, the Nashville Airport, don't open until 11, except the factory at Franklin now opens at 7 a.m. with their brand new breakfast. Classic hot chicken biscuit, pimento cheese and hot chicken and waffle stack. The crispy hash browns are so good with the Drinking Buddy beer cheese or bacon cheddar grits, if that's what floats your boat. Of course, every other location will open up in about 20 minutes. Try one of their new wing flock packs, 12 or 18 full jumbo wings. Hot or not, you choose. You don't have to go all the way to the shut the cluck up. You can go mild, medium, hot, no spice at all. Hattie B's is a family-run restaurant serving up your favorite Southern food and authentic Nashville hot chicken. So be like Bert. Go see Hattie B's today.
Welcome back to the show. Fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Bert is on his way to get some Hattie B's right now, as a matter of fact. That seems like a scene. That seems like something I don't want to witness in real time. Bert and a plate of Hattie B's. Graphic. Not safe for work.
It makes me crave Hattie B's, to be honest.
Oh, goodness. Everything makes me crave Hattie B's. Just anything in the shape of a chicken wing, a cloud, makes me want Hattie B's. Anyway. So we'll get to the Preds playoff opponent because it's officially set now, and we had our friend Lindsay Rowley in studio the other day talking about the ideal matchup for her based on the two potential opponents, and seems like Lindsay got her way. We'll address that here in just a second, but in the meantime, we've been talking Titans. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion if you so choose, which is what Chuck in Clarksville wants to do.
Hey, Buck.
Hey.
Hey, I still think the offensive tackles is probably the biggest unknown on our team. I think Will Davis has given us enough of a window to see if he's got protection, what he can do. And with the adding of Calvin Ridley and maybe another potential target, and with our duo in the backfield, giving him more options, I think he's going to have, I don't know of a stellar year, but a very good year as a quarterback. So I think the offensive tackles are still the most unknown thing we've got on the offense.
Sure, because, I mean, then thank you for the call, Chuck. I don't want to say because you don't have them at all, but you do have players that can play tackle, so I don't want to be outright dismissive of the work that they've done to kind of bolster that room. Adam Weber on YouTube also chimes in, Skoronski, Duncan, NPF, and Radin should all improve under Bill Callahan. And I think that's okay to have that as the expectation, but in reality, is all of that going to happen? And are they all going to turn into, maybe if not quality starting offensive linemen, but competent starting offensive linemen? I don't think you can bank on that outright, but that's what they're doing with Bill Callahan as much as anything, not just about scouting who's there, but trying to salvage what's left. If they can get anything out of Radins in a contract year, think about that. Dylan Radins already in a contract year, which is just crazy. I feel like the COVID drafts have warped my sense of time to where that just doesn't add up to me.
Which means Caleb Farley's in a contract year.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, Elijah Molden also in a contract year. There's a lot of just big old question marks from these John Robinson post-COVID and COVID draft. Well, none of the COVID draft players are left, but all of the post-COVID J-Rob drafts, there's still a ton of questions on.
Who else from that draft is still around? Not Monty Rice. 21.
21.
Not Des Fitzpatrick.
Rice is out. Fitzpatrick is out. Molden, Farley, Radins. The safety, Brady Breeze, is gone.
Mm-hmm. He was gone immediately.
Not immediately. He made it a little bit into the season before he got cut and ended up on the Lions practice
squad. And
Racy McMath.
And Elijah Molden, who's here, and Rashad Weaver.
Weaver, okay. Weaver, I know enough about Weaver, and I would like an upgrade over Weaver if I was the Titans. Now, they don't have the luxury of really turning their nose up at any edge players or defensive linemen right now, so they need Rashad Weaver to be a player of consequence, and to date, he's been, below replacement level starter. Just doesn't really pop in any aspect of the game, but he's a body and he can give you fresh legs. That 2021 draft doesn't look much better, and then 2022, you're still waiting on. Is Chig the player that you feel best about out of 2022? Probably, and I don't have any like outright bad feelings about Chig, but I would like a hell of a lot more at a starting tight end. So, in a perfect world, yeah, all that comes to fruition, and you get the most out of the remaining offensive linemen on rookie contracts as humanly possible. I just don't want to count on that. I want to continue to supplement it with talent, and that's their plan.
Well, we can count on the Preds playing the Canucks.
Yes, and that was the matchup between the Stars and the Canucks that we talked to Lindsay Rowley about. What was that, 2 days ago? Tuesday when we had her in studio. And
Dallas locked up the 1 seed in the West by beating St. Louis 2-1 yesterday. So regular season ends tonight. We don't have an official date or anything, but we know it will be Nashville, Vancouver.
I'm really hoping that I don't have a Preds playoff game that's pushing me for eyeballs or attendance on the install. That's the only thing that I was kind of thinking about, because it's between the Broadway chair thrower having a concert at Nissan Stadium that weekend and a potential Preds playoff game. But
Not about you, Buck.
That one kind of is. That one kind of is. Anyway, so yes, Lindsay Rowley speaking on the playoff matchup that the Preds will now face at a date TBD.
I think Vancouver. I think they've kind of hit their peak. Not to say that they're going to be an easy matchup by any means. There is no easy matchup. They're incredibly skilled, incredibly fast. So it's going to be tough. But you also have to take into consideration, I mean, sometimes if the plane to the game hits wind, you're talking over a 4.5 hour flight. So, but that being said, the Predators starting on the road have time to get there. We'll probably get there a couple days in advance when we find out when we're playing and be able to settle in and get used to the time difference. Whereas when Vancouver comes back, they're probably, I would assume, have less than a day and they're not going to, I mean, yeah, sure, at home they're in their own beds, but in that way you could kind of argue that the Preds have a little bit of an advantage, being able to get out to Vancouver, get settled in. But for me, as far as on the ice, travel is going to be a pain in the butt, but I think that the Predators have a better chance against Vancouver. I say that, and we were talking to Bruno about it, and we were like, hey, what do you think? And he goes, I go either way. He was like, I've played in the playoffs, I've coached in the playoffs, and sometimes you get the matchup that you want. And he's like, and we got our butts kicked. He was like, and then you get the team and you're like, man, this is going to be tough, and you end up winning it. He was like, so, I mean, all bets are off in the playoffs. It really is. But if you ask me who I'd rather face on the ice, I would go Vancouver.
So that is Lindsay Rowley.
That whole segment, by the way, is on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube page.
Valley Sports. You can get that Preds playoff preview with the first round opponent in mind. We'll keep you updated once we have the full schedule, which we should have tomorrow. People are telling us not to go. People are telling me not to go, understandably. I would like to go to a Preds playoff game. I think that is there a more enjoyable atmosphere than the Preds in the playoffs? Because the Titans have had some moments. I haven't really gotten the only home playoff game there's two, that I've gotten to cover for the Titans is the one against the Ravens, which was a COVID playoff game. So there was hardly anybody in the stands. And then the Bengals first round playoff game, which was just a bomb being dropped on that stadium.
It was electric.
Vibes were high until the very first pass of the game, and then all that good energy was immediately sucked out, and Ryan Tannehill went on to throw 3 interceptions.
This is so weird because the Preds have not played the Canucks since the turn of the new year. Like, the Preds were a completely different team the last time they played the Canucks, and they went 0 for 3 against them before 2024 came around, and then obviously the turnaround came a couple months after that. So it's just an odd scheduling thing, and the Canucks finished out the year winning 3 of their last 4. Their one loss was an OT loss against the Coyotes, who I just learned are not going to be in Arizona anymore.
Yeah, I saw that last week on Instagram. They're moving to Utah.
Poor fans, man. They've been through it over there.
Are there, do you know
if they exist,
a Coyote fan?
Well, no, I don't know if I know a Suns fan or a Cardinals fan. I don't have a lot of friends in Arizona. Never been to Arizona.
Well, that's why. 615-737-1045 is the number. Where do you not want to see Brock Bowers land? We've talked about the idea of him with the Titans. I've got one team in the division that I absolutely do not want to see draft Brock Bowers if I'm a Titans fan. We'll get to that coming up next.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Nashville Predators' first-round playoff opponent is official. It'll be the Vancouver Canucks, who secured the 2 seed in the West on Wednesday after Dallas defeated St. Louis to clinch the 1 seed. Dates and times not yet official as the NHL regular season wraps up tonight. The NFL Draft starts 1 week from today in Detroit. Today in NFL news, the LA Chargers reportedly are signing running back J.K. Dobbins on a 1-year deal, reuniting the former Baltimore Raven with his former offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. And tragic news ahead of the draft, Albany defensive lineman and draft prospect A.J. Simon passed away unexpectedly this week. The school announced on Wednesday he was only 25. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Worst case scenarios. We've talked about all the best case scenarios. I've talked about a left tackle all I can. We've got 7 days left to go until the NFL draft, and we can actually talk about real players of consequence concretely on your roster. I cannot wait. We are one step closer. So we're working through some worst case scenarios today, and we thought we'd put a little different spin on one in particular that I think could impact the Titans. We'd be happy to have you. Thanks for hanging out with us in the second hour. We got Jackson, we got Lucas, we got Joseph back there making sure that I get my stories on the television in here. Jackson was shocked that I would prefer to watch. Is this The Young and the Restless? Which soap is this on the television screen right now?
This is The Young and the Restless. Season 42.
So,
Is that for real?
Is actually season 51. I misspoke.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, that shouldn't surprise you.
I did not know that soaps were like that. Like, I didn't realize soaps were that long-standing. That's incredible.
Absolutely. So we've got the soaps on the TV. It makes me very happy. Have you guys ever actually watched any of these daytime television programs?
No, my grandmother watches them religiously in Brazil. But like those, there's very few that are as long running as like multiple decades. They'll go for a few seasons and that's it. But the telenovelas are huge down there. But I've never personally watched what's the one that Joey Tribbiani was in Friends, Days of Our Lives. I've never watched an episode of Days of Our Lives.
I have, but we'll save the soap stories for another day. We can continue to talk about the draft. Brock Bowers is an interesting prospect, and we spent a good deal of time talking about the idea of potentially him with the Titans. And I think that's one of 5 places that he would make sense, provided a couple of things come to pass. I certainly don't think he makes it out of the top 10, but there are scenarios in place and trades potentially that could push a premium player, arguably a top 5 overall prospect. I don't think it's arguable. Brock Bowers is a top 5 overall prospect in this particular draft, where Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. are probably 1 and 2 in some form or fashion. But the quarterback draft can cause a lot of domino effects, and I think it's interesting to kind of look at Bowers in particular as a chess piece on the board. Now, the Titans are probably one of the least likely spots, because I think if given the choice between Alt and Bowers, they would go Alt. It's not just the connection that Bill Callahan has to the Notre Dame offensive line coach. It's not the fact that, smart people who are talking to general managers and league execs everywhere continue to pick Alt to the Titans. It's not the most obvious thing in the world, which is that the Titans need desperately a franchise left tackle that they can pick, they can put there, and they can leave it alone for the next 8 to 10 years, hopefully. Fingers crossed if you're a Titans fan. Chig is good enough, I think. Well, I don't want to say Chig is good enough to pass on Bowers. But I feel like Chig is still an ascending player, even if it hasn't gone exactly to plan. Because Chig is not the first young tight end to struggle. This is kind of a theme in the last couple of years. Did you see that tweet I sent the group from Sheil Kapadia of The Ringer? Who's probably worth getting on at some point. We should text Sheil here in the near future. He said of the tight end position, and this was something that jumped out to me, in the last 10 years, now this is specific to first-round tight ends, but obviously Bowers is one. In the last 10 years, 9 tight ends have been picked in the first round of the NFL draft. How many all-pro seasons, Lucas, do you want to guess those 9 first-round tight ends have combined for? How many all-pro nods do you think those 9 first-round tight ends have combined for?
In the last how many years?
In the last 10 years, 9 first-round tight ends.
I'm trying to think of first round. Kyle Pitts has never been an all-pro. Dalton Kincaid was a first-round pick, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Sam Laporta.
Not a first-round pick.
Not a first-round pick. Of the 9, I'm going to say 2?
0. Not a single first-round tight end in the last decade of football has gotten an all-pro nod. And only one has had a 1,000-yard season.
Kyle Pitts.
Yes. One of 9, David Njoku, got a second contract. 2 of them are still on their rookie deals in Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts, so we'll see. But the young tight end, barrier that they struggle to break through, I'd be curious to talk to when we have Rand Carthon on the Install Live show. I'd be fascinated to know if there's something that league evaluators and general managers know or can discern about why it is so difficult for tight ends in their early years to break through. Because you do see a lot of these Dalton Schultzes on one-year prove-it deals after their rookie contracts expire, and then they get paid. Evan Ingram, another example of that. They get a one-year prove-it deal somewhere in Jacksonville, and then maybe it turns into an extension elsewhere. But they do typically struggle as a position group, which is odd. Or at least I think it's odd.
But what does that have to do with Brock Bowers?
Well, nothing really. Because anytime we do one of these historical trend things, it doesn't really apply. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind, and it may or may not apply. Brock Bowers may be the thing that breaks through this trend. We don't know that yet.
Remember the Ohio State quarterback thing?
Yeah.
Well, Ohio State quarterbacks, they just don't work in the NFL. That had anything to do with C.J. Stroud as a prospect.
Sure. The Giants, with Darren Waller getting up there in age, makes sense. The Titans, just based on where they're picking, you could see, though I think it's less likely. The Broncos, in need desperately of a playmaker, because right now they're rocking with Jarrett Stidham, and they just need to build the best possible team around whatever quarterback they drop into that system right now. It's going to be a bit of a slog for them. I like the idea of the Jets adding do you know how few, and I don't have the numbers in front of me exactly, but I heard it on NFL Live the other day, just Aaron Rodgers and the amount of times he has just even targeted a first-round pick in his career is crazy low, because the Packers just didn't draft wide receivers in the first round, famously. Instead, they took, Jordan Love, for example, to succeed Aaron Rodgers. I like the idea of the Jets doing that in the first round. They've got the 10th overall pick. But the number one team that, if I'm a Titans fan, I don't want to see land Brock Bowers. You want to take a guess? They're in the AFC South. I don't want to see the Indianapolis Colts and Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson and a creative run-based offense with a versatile piece that you can deploy in line, that you can split out wide, that you can line up in the backfield. I think that Brock Bowers and the Colts, though they do have some tight ends under contract right now. In fact, they just recently drafted a few of them. They still got Mo Alley Cox, as far as I know. And I believe the Virginia tight end is still on the roster there. Jelani Woods is still on the roster there, though they haven't done anything like groundbreaking. I think Brock Bowers to the Colts would be a Titans fan's nightmare. I think that guy's a matchup problem immediately when you get him on the field.
Trying to think back to how Shane Steichen utilized Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia. So Shane Steichen left Philly after the 2022 season, right? This was his first year.
Yep.
So Steichen was the OC in Philly for how long?
He came there, I thought, with who's the head coach? Sirianni. He came with Sirianni the year that he was hired. Sirianni was hired in 21.
So Steichen was there 21 and 22. Steichen was calling plays from the jump, right? Sirianni wasn't calling plays initially.
Right.
I'm just making sure of that. Anyway, Brock Bowers had the two best years of his career, Brock Bowers. Dallas Goedert had the two best years of his career under Shane Steichen, 830 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2021, 702 and 3 touchdowns in 2022. There were other factors in the Eagles offense, but his production dropped off. Had 59 catches for 592 yards and 3 touchdowns this past season.
Right now, the Colts are slated to pick 15th overall. I would be shocked if Brock Bowers, who I could argue is the third best overall prospect in this particular draft, I would be shocked if the third best player in this draft ended up at 15. But it's a weird position group. I think there's any number of teams in the top 15 that could add him, but there's not any, like, save the Jets. There's not really a glaring tight end need on any of these teams. It's a really fun offensive skill player draft. The wide receivers are going to take precedence here, I think. But how many wide receivers do we think get picked before Bowers gets picked? Because I think you can deploy him all over the place in the same way that you would be able to move a top flight wide receiver around.
When you think luxury pick in this draft, does Brock Bowers not come to mind? Right?
I think he is like the definition of a luxury pick. Because he's a non-premium position at tight end, but he is as versatile a piece at tight end as we've seen, and I think he's a better prospect than Pitts was.
Like, how many teams are going into this draft day one saying, God, we need a tight end. We have got to get a tight end early.
Not many, but how many are saying, God, we need an offensive playmaker.
We need a playmaker.
We need a playmaker, and he is one. The rest of them are tight ends. This is an offensive playmaker that you would be adding to your roster. Glenn Chafin says, so you're saying we don't need a tight end? No, I mean, your head coach said it very loudly. We need tight ends. Not just because they only have 3 under contract, but they need tight ends. They need more bodies to go into camp with. I don't know that couldn't come through the draft. But I don't think Wiley and Chig are enough for you to feel confident in. Who's the other one? Raider under contract?
No,
still?
I believe it's
let me double check.
Odukoya.
Thomas Odukoya.
Yep.
Who, is a nice story, an international development player who Mike Vrabel spoke very highly of for his work ethic and his willingness to do a great many things. And that can, you can Mason Kinsey your way through this thing. You can make it last if you want to, but you probably need a third legitimate tight end, and I don't know that Odukoya is there, but we'll see what kind of steps he takes under a new coaching staff.
What kind of career trajectory would have to be laid out for you if you could look into the future and look at what Brock Bowers is going to do in his career? Like, what kind of career trajectory would be required for you to be okay with taking him at 7?
Why don't we talk about that coming up next? Oh, he wasn't ready. Welcome back to the radio show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Thinking about lunch yet? What are you thinking about?
I'm always thinking about lunch.
Maybe in the noon hour we start going through the menu items. Is there anything on the Hattie B's menu that you have not yet tried?
Ooh, good question. I've tried all the sides. I'm a big sides guy. Like the sides are a huge factor for me in whether it's barbecue, hot chicken, whatever. And the pimento mac, the collard greens.
All right, slow down.
Yeah, you did this.
I'm still getting used to you being in here with me. Like,
surprise.
That's really, I don't know how I feel about it yet. I feel like we're going to have to recalibrate our microphones because Lucas is so loud when there's not 3 foot of glass between him and I.
The one thing I told Jackson to get ready for this, just mind the levels.
Mind the levels. Because I was driving and listening to you two trying to take over the radio show while I was running late, and I could hear you through Robert's microphone. I'm just like, all right, enough of this. This is too much. This is overwhelming.
He also did have 2 mics on.
That's probably his fault then. Anyway, so we were talking about teams we wouldn't like to see Brock Bowers land with, and I brought up the Giants in particular as a team that might be interested in his services. For those of you who remember our Combine coverage, our friend Madeline Burke, who does sidelines for the Giants radio network, she is at a Joe Shane press conference right now, the general manager there in New York, who is saying the Giants are giving Darren Waller time and space to make his decision on retirement, which Waller alluded to considering this offseason. Shane says he has been in contact with Waller's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, and I quote tweeted that, and I said, #Bowers watch. So Giants at 6 could very easily try and supplement things around Daniel Jones while taking a second-round quarterback potentially. We saw Bo Nix mocked to them by Mel Kiper yesterday, and famously they're not on solid footing with Daniel Jones as an organization. So something to keep in mind in New York.
Buyer's remorse. What's the last thing you had buyer's remorse about?
Ooh, what a great question. What is the last thing that I had buyer's remorse about?
Maybe that's a poll. What's the worst buyer's remorse you've ever had?
I feel like we could do a whole segment on that if it's a slow news day.
Putting it to a poll.
Yeah, you know what? No. Wait, let's save that for tomorrow. Let's do that in a 45. I want time to think about this because I honestly think I could come up with some really dumb bleep that I've bought and not just the dumb bleep that Robert sends me to buy for him on a regular basis. Sent me a damn hot tub the other day that he wanted me to buy. Look, it's the most redneck thing I've ever seen in my life, this hot tub. Anyway, we'll get into it. I did not purchase it for him. Anyway, so as you evaluate the different scenarios in which the Titans can go, we were working through this exercise in the first hour. We went through the offense as far as the Titans roster and the championship foundation formula that Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network put out back in February. This was basically as the season ended. And so just to refresh, we took a look based on the grading criteria of the Titans offense, where the criteria is 1 quarterback, 3 offensive playmakers, 3 quality offensive linemen. Out of that group, with Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, the combination, because they're going to split the workload here, of Spears and Pollard. And we could not come up with 3 quality offensive linemen because the Titans do not yet have 3 quality offensive linemen on their roster, but Skoronski and Cushenberry were the 2 that we selected that we could determine. Now, out of those players, there are 2 unknowns in Will Levis and Peter Skoronski, though they could take a step this year. There are 3 green, which is good players, in DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and the combination of the running backs. There is 1 blue chip player, which is Lloyd Cushenberry, meaning that he's as good as it gets at the position, and I think you could argue that very much. And then for the purposes of the Titans lacking a 3rd quality offensive lineman by this criterion, a big old red blotch in the middle of their offense to indicate that they do not have a 3rd quality offensive lineman. But you feel pretty good about the rest of it, and the draft is ahead of us. Potentially Joe Alt could be that player. So now we flip to the defensive side of the ball before we work through some draft scenarios. So again, 2 pass rushers and 3 defensive playmakers is how we're going to determine the criteria here. 2 pass rushers. So that's Harold Landry, obviously, and Arden Key. 3 defensive playmakers. I would go Jeff, I would go Snead, and I would go Amani Hooker. Harold Landry, is he a blue chip player or is he a good player? Because I could make the argument second half of the season that Harold Landry was as good as it got in the NFL as far as edge players went. But he didn't do it for a whole season coming off the ACL. Doesn't mean that Harold can't. He's been as durable a commodity, save the ACL a couple of years ago, as any player in the sport. And then got the contract, and then unfortunately the ACL tear happened. Harold is a blue chip or a green, meaning good player. I'm going to go green. I don't think you can. Harold Landry is not Myles Garrett. He's not TJ Watt. What's another top flight edge player that you could name?
I mean, Daniil Hunter last year.
Sure.
I mean, you go through a lot of edge rushers, I feel like, before you get to Harold at the very top of the NFL. Like the best pass rushers in the National Football League. I don't know.
Max Crosby.
Yeah. Like how many names do you go through before you get to Harold?
A few.
There's only so many blue chip. Like blue chip is reserved for the elite of the elite in the NFL.
If Myles Garrett is a blue chip player, then Harold Landry is a green.
Yep.
Fair. Okay. So I feel pretty good, though, about the blue chip caliber of the defense. Snead, blue. Jeff, blue. Amani Hooker, green. Those are your three defensive playmakers. Then Arden to me is a pink. Arden to me, even though he's this far along in his career, the four qualifications are blue chip, green, good, yellow with general concerns, whether that be age, injury, or contract concerns, pink being unknown. Arden Key to me is a pink player because Arden Key is anything but a proven commodity. I don't think that Arden is quite good yet. If Harold is good, then Arden is lacking in consistency on a regular basis. I don't have age or injury or contract concerns with Arden. He's pretty cost effective at $7 million a year on that 3-year deal. Can I classify him as pink and an unproven player?
I disagree. I think Arden Key is a proven commodity in terms of what he is. A situational, rotational pass rusher. He's going into his 7th season in the NFL.
That's not good enough. Situational player is not good enough for me to make him
I'm just
green.
saying he's proven that's what he is. That's my argument.
So, but are you outright concerned about Arden Key? Because you're either concerned about him, and I know I'm being pretty rigid here with the criteria, but is he a yellow or a pink? Because he's not a green or a blue.
That's like Arden Key needs to be almost a separate color for me. Like we need to make like a.
That's not how the game works.
Give me a color.
Chartreuse.
Give me a color.
He just did. You weren't listening. You were talking over him.
Chartreuse.
Chartreuse.
God, this is going to be a disaster to figure out how all three of us can talk without running over each other.
Chartreuse should just be fine. He's fine. He is what he is. We know what he is. He's not a blue chip player. He's not a green player. He's not unproven. Arden Key is not in the young/unproven category. He's going into his 7th season in the NFL. We know what Arden Key is, right? Like is NWI an unproven, we don't really know what.
No, NWI to me is green. NWI is good. I can rely on NWI.
I think NWI is chartreuse. Reliable. He's fine. He's fine. He is what he is. That is Arden Key to me. If the Titans draft an edge rusher within the first 2 days of the draft, which could very well happen.
All right, well, Daniel Jeremiah didn't give me a chartreuse box, Lucas. I've got yellow and pink, so we're saying
I
yellow.
gave you a chartreuse box.
I don't care about what you
I can't even picture what chartreuse is. What is chartreuse?
Jackson?
It's like a purpley color. I feel like it's got a little red, little blue. It fit.
You could not be more off. It's like
he just used a funny word. He didn't know what it was.
Chartreuse is like when you mix yellow and green.
Oh, that works too.
Actually, yeah.
Good
job by you, Jackson.
Spot on. You didn't know what the hell you were talking about, but you nailed it, which is right on brand for this show. You're going to fit in just fine. So I'm just, for the purpose of the exercise, for God's sakes, I'm going to qualify him as yellow. I'm not outright concerned with Arden or his age or his contract or anything, but I would like a more consistent pass rusher opposite Harold Landry. I think they could upgrade. I think they could stand to upgrade. And if you could slot Arden down into a Weaver role where he's more of the situational pass rusher that can be more effective, and if you want to deploy him in NASCAR packages or different defensive front looks, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. But there's nothing about Arden Key that I'm outright sold on yet, other than he's a very enjoyable guest. I like his presence on the radio show, and anytime anybody else says no to us on the radio show, we say, okay, give us Arden.
So what are the Titans missing from the championship foundation created by Daniel Jeremiah after we go through the entire thing. Only one red, right?
Only one red. They are missing 2 quality offensive linemen, 2 proven quality offensive linemen, because Skoronski is not there yet, and they don't have a 3rd quality offensive lineman. They're missing a proven commodity at quarterback, which we will see under Brian Callahan. Of course, that's how the head coach's success or failure will be determined, whether he can get the most out of Will Levis. Feel pretty good about the defense if that's the criteria. If the worst thing that I can say about the defense based on this foundational formula is, I would like somebody better than Arden Key, but you have Arden under contract, so it helps. The thing that they're missing the most is the offensive line, which, we talked about. But that can undo you so quickly in today's NFL. And again, it's not just about the quality of the starters. It's about the depth. You have to play 17 games. The backup quarterback has never been more important. The swing tackle has never been more important. That's why you're seeing them getting paid the way that you are.
Right. So according to this, the Titans are a proven quarterback, 2 quality offensive linemen, and a good second pass rusher away from having a championship foundation. Like that's a lot to get to, and that's just for the foundation. Like that doesn't mean Super Bowl contender. That's the foundation. Like you still got to build the house. There's depth in the specialists and the coaching and the tight ends and you name it. That's just to get to the foundation.
They're less brick and mortar right now than they are house of cards, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that, I'll buy Will Levis stock. I'm good with that. I feel good about Will Levis. I think he's heading in the right direction. I don't know for sure what he is yet. I'll buy the Peter Skoronski stock if you're selling. I'm good on that. I think that he can be a quality player. I don't know that he's ever going to be an All-Pro, but I bet he makes a Pro Bowl or 2 in his career. The rest of it, they need to fill out behind the top-line starters, because if it was just the top-line starters, you feel pretty good about the roster. But it's not just that. This is a team that's competing to try and dig themselves out. They're basically competing for a wild card spot in 2023, or 2024 rather, the way that I view them. The draft is not going to impact that in a huge way for me, because you can get a ton out of rookies. In fact, I think the Detroit Lions are the best recent example of hitting on a draft class and that's setting you over the top, right? So it's possible, but setting the Titans over the top here would be competing for the AFC South. I'm gonna hold my expectations from that just yet. I would like to see them compete for a playoff spot. I think that they're capable of that with the parts as presently constructed, provided that there is a step taken forward by the unproven players that we've talked about in Skoronski, in Spears, in Levis, in Wiley. I don't know if you want to factor Colton Dowell into this. I don't really, I guess. But there's a lot more that needs to be done for this to be considered anything but, all right, let's mess around and see if they can make a wild card slot.
So according to this, the most important thing for the Titans to achieve in the draft is to turn that red into at least a pink. At bare minimum, a pink.
Give me a face that I can put in that slot.
Preferably at left tackle.
Ideally. Although the right tackle, it's not insignificant. It's just, you have to find your solution at one. Left tackle is the most likely in this draft, right? You have to find your solution at one so that you can stop having to help both sides on any given passing down, right? They're having to help both tackles on any given passing down, any given drop back for Will Levis, and you just can't do it effectively. You have to have somebody who can occasionally win one-on-one the way that Lawan could or Conklin could from time to time and shift the help to the other side where you need it. They haven't had that luxury in quite some time. So we'll get there.
But in the first round, your options are essentially getting that offensive lineman to turn from red into at least pink, or adding a green offensive playmaker, right? Because if you're drafting a wide receiver or a Brock Bowers at 7, you need him to be a green offensive playmaker, right?
Yeah. You can interact with the show via the phones if you want to, or you can dial in the F&M Bank chat, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. That's where the show is live streamed. Since we're talking about the draft, a quick reminder that Titans general manager Rand Carthon, Lucas, we sold 68 damn tickets to the install show yesterday after we announced that Rand was going to be a part of the show, which made me very happy, which also means that I told you guys you better get your damn tickets because I'm going to run out of them very, very soon. There are just a few left, so go to 1045thezone.com if you want to be a part of the best live Titans post-draft breakdown with the dude that's making the picks, Rand Carthon, Greg Cosell, Friday, May the 3rd. I'm going to try not to bog down the proceedings. If you guys think I talk too much, this is going to be the perfect show for you because the objective for me is just going to be to shut up and get the hell out of the way of these two football minds as they chop it up for our show at the Analog in the Hutton Hotel. Again, Friday, May the 3rd. Tickets available at 1045thezone.com. Jackson, when you have a moment, maybe you drop the Eventbrite link in the live stream chat for people to be able to purchase their tickets online.
There will be a QR code as well on the break screen on 1045 The Zone TV.
Absolutely. So, talking about draft stuff, there was a draft that just happened in a different sport. WNBA draft went down. It's funny. It's the most male thing in the world that the WNBA draft happens with all the stars that they did. And that's the first time that the male collective society realizes, oh my God, there's a wage gap between men and women's sports. But there was something very cringy to result out of Caitlin Clark's introductory press conference with now my Indiana Fever. We're going to get to that coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken on this Thursday afternoon. So now that women's sports or women's basketball is seemingly at the forefront of a lot of the discussion here lately, in the NBA, the WNBA draft setting records, financially, us all being made aware of, if you didn't know how little WNBA players made, respect or relative to the rest of professional sports, or most of professional sports. You were made aware on draft night when you saw Caitlin Clark's first overall pick rookie contract. And now everything she does is a TMZ headline. Have you noticed this? She gives a press conference with the Indiana Fever yesterday, an introductory press conference with the Indiana Fever, and there are TMZ headlines that result out of that, which we'll get to in a second. She makes an appearance before the draft on SNL. She absolutely crushes Michael Che, who's been crushing women's sports, year after year in SNL weekend updates, and did a very, very funny bit that Che was a good sport for, and it went viral. She is blocking Antonio Brown on social media today, which I literally not 7 minutes ago got a TMZ headline about, because Antonio Brown is doing Antonio Brown things.
Missed that.
And tweeting wildly inappropriate stuff at Caitlin Clark. Least surprising thing in the world. Congratulations to AB. But she is becoming this focal point for a lot of different things. So now everything around her is hyper-scrutinized in ways that the WNBA and its coverage is not used to. So there's this awkward interaction with a columnist for the Indianapolis Star, which is like their paper of record, right? The Tennessean is the paper of record here in Middle Tennessee. The Indy Star is that for the Indianapolis area. Greg Doyle, the leading sports columnist, been there for a long time, has been a very successful columnist. I knew Greg when I was in college, as a matter of fact. He spoke to a bunch of my classes. I've always had great interactions with him, which is why I was surprised to see that this was the person having this very, very cringy exchange with Caitlin Clark.
Hi, Caitlin. Greg Doyle, Indy Star. Real quick, let me do this.
So he's making the heart
You like
sign.
that?
I like that you're here. I like that you're here.
I do that at my family after every game, so.
Okay, well, let's start doing it to me and we'll be able to get along just fine. So, question is.
Okay, so he's doing the heart sign to Caitlin Clark at the press conference before he starts to ask the question. And she follows that up, obviously. Yes, Jackson, thank you for making the heart sign at me. I appreciate that.
I'm going to start doing it all the time, just randomly.
Don't do that. Both of you stop right now.
As long as you do it to us, we'll be just fine.
No, that's the exact opposite of the way that I feel about you
just as creepy, right?
Yeah, it sounds creepy, okay? And this is the thing that media, not new media generally, but media new to the WNBA coverage, you cannot have that happen in a press conference with a female, just fresh out of college athlete. Do that to me and it'll be just fine. What the hell does that mean, Greg? And he's put out an apology. He said in a tweet, "Today, in my uniquely oafish way, while welcoming Caitlin Clark to Indy, I formed my hands into her signature heart. My comment afterward was clumsy and awkward. I sincerely apologize. Please know my heart, literally and figuratively, was well-intentioned. I will do better." And people screw up. I've had awkward interactions in press conferences all the time. I've had awkward moments in press conferences all the time. This happens sometimes. But when you have the microscope on you that women's professional basketball is about to have it on, you can't have the overtly creepy moment that Greg Doyle just did. You can't. Which is, again, something that the WNBA is not used to, having these moments, because I'm sure they happen more frequently than we've realized, and we're just now noticing it, or just now having it brought to mainstream attention because of Caitlin Clark. I mean, Greg Doyle is not going to be the first reporter or journalist or person covering the WNBA to stick his foot in his mouth or his heart sign wherever in the middle of this. And I wonder how many of these TMZ notifications I'm going to get about Caitlin Clark and awkward interactions with reporters, because people are, not properly trained to cover women's basketball the way that they've been ignoring it for the better part of 20 years.
You know how people say something gave you the ick?
That's
people ask you, like, what gives you the ick? And, like, for you, it's eating wings in public, like, things like that. This gave me the ick. Like, this was the definition of that for me. Clearly, it was intended to be, like, a well-natured back and forth. Like, it couldn't have come off worse. Even the, "I'm glad you're here." Like, I don't know. Just a reporter saying that to it.
So McAfee did it yesterday with Pat McAfee, the former Colts punter. He's based in Indianapolis. His show is based in Indianapolis that ESPN now licenses, and they had Caitlin Clark in studio. And he did this perfectly, right? He did a jersey exchange with her. He had a Colts 22 Caitlin Clark jersey, and he looked at her and said, "We're so glad you're here. We're so glad that you're here. I hope you feel that. I hope that you know how much the city of Indianapolis rides for you now that you're one of us. Welcome," basically. And he did it in a very wholesome way. What Greg Doyle did was, I assume, meant in the same vein. He just tripped all over himself in front of a microphone and embarrassed himself. What are you doing making the heart? Like, just why? Can you imagine if I'd what would be a reasonable facsimile of like a Mike Vrabel press conference where, you know, we make a heart sign at Mike or something like that, and he immediately cuts one of our heads off. Or Callahan, or, you know, Rand, something like that.
Or a player that has like a signature celebration, right? And you do it in a press conference setting, and it's just establish that relationship elsewhere, not in an introductory press conference.
What'd you say, Jackson?
I just imagine somebody hitting the old school CJ2K celebration in the middle of a press conference.
Yeah, it'd be me. Like if I ever, for example, interviewed LeBron James, and I brought some baby powder into the press conference setting, threw it up in the air, clapped my hands together, and said, "All right, LeBron, let me ask you a question."
I'm glad you're here.
What bizarre?
What do you do that people have told you gives them the ick?
What that I do?
Yes. What is something? Megan has told me she hates it when I call tomatoes maters.
Ugh.
She hates it.
Everybody should.
She hates it.
Maters?
Or potatoes taters.
Taters is different. But
taters, and why is calling a potato a tater different from calling a tomato a mater?
Do you have 3 teeth? Why are you calling either of those things taters and maters? Just be an adult and call them tomatoes and potatoes.
Tornadoes are naters. It's just more efficient this way.
Okay, naters is different.
Why? A wise man once said, "Why say lot word when few word do trick?"
How you just got that off was impressive. What is something that I do? I'm sure anybody could tell me in the chat right now. What is something that I do that gives them the ick? Probably have a show named after myself. That's a pretty big ick. In my defense, I tried to name it Wake and Take, and they looked at me and said, "No, you idiot."
Cole on the FNM Bank chat says tater tots are a thing, while Mater is impersonating the Cars truck. That is Larry the Cable Guy's character in Cars.
Are you Larry the Cable Guy? Because that's what I imagine the person that says Maters looks like. Okay, with overalls and one strap hanging off and no shirt underneath, just a big old hairy man wearing his overalls, saying, "Y'all get those Maters, fried green Maters?"
People are not on my side about this.
Absolutely,
Megan will be happy. Jameson says eating fries with a fork gives him the ick.
That is something that I do.
Oh, when you say bleep. Yeah, people have told me that before. I've had friends tell me, like, why does he say bleep? Like, it's just like, I don't know. It's not like you can say the cuss word. So I don't know what the alternative would be, but apparently that gives some people the ick.
Good. It's not going to stop. Not eating barbecue or anything saucy in public gives people the ick. That's something that I refuse to do. I absolutely will not. I don't think that's an ick related thing though. Like, I'm sparing you from having to watch somebody covered in sauce try and eat something that's not exactly easy to eat. Okay? Like, I'm not going to be the person who, it doesn't impress me when one of my buddies takes a chicken wing, puts the whole thing in his mouth and just comes out with the bone. That's not impressive to me. It's disgusting. I don't want to watch that.
Well, Greg Doyle gave the whole world the ick.
Yeah, he did.
The other day.
All right. Well, congratulations to the WNBA. We're going to start exposing people's icks on a regular basis when reporters trip and fall over themselves. I just can't. It's going to happen to Angel Reese, and then Angel Reese is going to do something, and then Angel Reese is going to get blamed. I can't wait for that too, America's conversation. What a mess. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. So, we talked about Calvin Ridley, the Titans skill position group, and the players that they've added to it. There's a story that made me think of Calvin Ridley, and it comes from the NBA. The harms that gambling does to professional athletes where the leagues are so soaked in gambling money. We'll get into that coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Nashville Predators' first-round playoff opponent is now official. It'll be the Vancouver Canucks, who secured the 2 seed in the West on Wednesday after Dallas defeated St. Louis to clinch the 1 seed. The Preds played the Canucks 3 times this season, went 0 for 3, but have not played Vancouver since before the start of the new year. Dates and times yet to be officially determined. The NHL regular season wraps up tonight. The NFL Draft starts 1 week from today in Detroit. Today in NFL news, the Chargers reportedly are signing former Baltimore Ravens running back J.K. Dobbins on a 1-year deal. It reunites Dobbins with his offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. And tragic news ahead of the draft, Albany defensive lineman and draft prospect A.J. Simon passed away unexpectedly this week. The school announced it on Wednesday. He was just 25 years old. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Gambling issues. They're all over the place in professional sports right now. And yesterday we had one of the biggest punishments handed down for a player betting on his specific sport that we've seen. Now, I'm going to tell you why it's related to local sports here in just a second. Welcome into the final hour. We got Jackson, we got Lucas. We're making it happen with you until 1 o'clock before we turn things over to the professionals and Blaine and Mickey. 615-737-1045 is how you can join the conversation if you are so inclined. You can live stream the show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch as well. Make sure you like the video if you're watching with us on YouTube. We greatly appreciate when you guys do that for us. So gambling has basically subsidized much of our industry, Lucas, and I don't just mean like broadcast industry. I mean sports in general. As soon as the leagues and media companies, by the way, saw how many untapped billions with a B that lay ahead for them in the states where sports gambling is legal, in the ways that leagues could partner with gambling entities, they broke into that cash and didn't look back. Dove head first. The NFL was at a point in time less than a decade ago where they were not allowing Marshawn Lynch and Tony Romo to attend a fantasy football like symposium or gathering convention in Las Vegas just because it was one in Vegas and because too money is involved with fantasy football. They wouldn't let 2 of their top players go and do paid appearances because, the NFL is above this. Now, the NFL is in partnership with all of these entities. Full disclosure, I have a sportsbook partner on A to Z Sports Primetime that very much contributes to the financing of the primetime show that makes it free for everybody. I know everybody around here also has, or most people on the air around here and the station has various gambling partnerships and things like that because there's a lot of money and sponsorship dollars matters, and that's how we make all this stuff free for you guys. But when you start to get into this with players and the punishments are so harsh for the players getting involved in this that it starts to jeopardize the integrity of the league, how fine a line are you running if you're the league, and is the cost worth the harm that you could do to some of these players and their careers and to yourself if you get into trouble like Jonte Porter did with the NBA? Now, he was gambling on games. He was giving info to bettors, and he was limiting his own play for the betting purposes of betting a bunch of Jonte Porter unders. He was a particular kind of idiot in how he went about this, not doing much to hide any of it. And as a result, the Toronto Raptors forward was banned from the league yesterday. And a quote from Commissioner Adam Silver: "There is nothing more important than protecting the integrity of the NBA competition for our fans, our teams, and everyone associated with our sport, which is why Jonte Porter's blatant violations of our gaming rules are being met with the most severe punishment." Now, this happened to the Titans last year. Nicholas Petit-Frere because he was wagering not on NFL games, but he was wagering in what is considered a team facility, which, by the way, the scope of that was very broad, and the NFL had to change in real time. That saw even NPF's suspension reduced from 6 games to about, I think he missed, 3, 4 total NPF last year? Because initially it was a 6-game suspension, and then they came down and said, all right, we understand that this is a bit too broad, and NPF expressed that to us in training camp. He was like, I wasn't aware that, for example, being on the team bus and being connected to team Wi-Fi would get me popped for something like this.
For throwing a few bucks on Ohio State or something. Obviously a very different situation from Jonte Porter.
Correct, but the leagues aren't treating them much differently. Now, they're making adjustments in real time, as they did with the NFL's gaming policy last year.
What do you mean they're not treating them differently?
They're treating, they have set, so for example, when you violate the league's personal conduct policy, there are set punishments to be handed out, right? They're not taking these things on an outright case-by-case basis. They're saying, hey, if you bet on NBA games as an active NBA player, we're going to ban you from the league. If you bet on, just basically that there's a structure to this that they have not yet had to really adjust, because we've only scratched the surface with players and coaches and gambling, quote-unquote, I don't want to call them scandals, but issues, right? So here's Calvin Ridley, who's just had firsthand experience with all of this. And I thought he was funny as hell talking about the gambling situation that he went through during his time with the Atlanta Falcons when he was introduced to Titans media. What was that? At the beginning of March? Mid-March, when Calvin Ridley was introduced to Titans media. He spoke on the league's gambling policy and how he managed his way through the situation.
I missed a lot about football. It was hard to watch it. It was hard to watch it knowing that I should have been out there. And honestly, coming from me, I didn't think I did that much. I think if you would have sat down and talked to me, and we would have had a nice conversation with the NFL or whoever I had to talk to, I think y'all would have realized, all right, he's not gambling. He was gambling, but you know what I'm saying. He didn't do it the way that they think he did. It was just, he was going through some things, and if you would have, chopped it up with me, and you could have, if you had a heart and you would have chopped it up with me, you would have been like, all right, we're going to give you 6 months. How about that? Instead of the year. So, but at the end of the day, it was, I did something. I got, I dealt with my consequences, and, it was really good for me, honestly.
So he laughed it off in real time, but this man lost arguably 2 years of his career because the NFL didn't distinguish between his situation at the time and, who we make the joke about the Indianapolis Colts defensive back getting suspended, but I can't remember who the guy was. Either way, that these situations need to be taken on an individualized basis. You can't have a set punishment structure for all these gambling issues when you're going to have the gambling all over the place and infiltrating everything that these players do and all of your leagues and all of your media entities supported by gambling and gambling this and gambling that. And are we going to put sports books in the new Washington Nationals stadium and things like that? This stuff is everywhere, and it's costing players real time, real money, real years off their career, where Calvin Ridley gets up there and makes the joke about, I'm 29, but I'm really 25, and he can laugh about it now. But I'm sure he was in absolute hell trying to figure out how he was going to recoup lost finances and lost playtime and earning potential from this gambling situation. I don't know the severity of his gambling situation, let's call it, but it sounds less severe than what obviously Jonte Porter did. And what he's saying is, if you'd have taken the time to talk to me about it, it wasn't an indefinite ban. It was a year, but at the time, it was at least a year and an indefinite suspension, if you remember correctly. I don't want indefinite around any of this stuff if I'm one of these players and you're drowning my league in gambling and then expecting me to know every rule and regiment about what the gambling stuff requires. I know it's easy to pile on guys like NPF and things like that, and I think I did at the time probably too harshly. It's just everywhere.
Do you think that is going to be Ipe Mizuhara's defense when he goes to court?
I just saw so many DraftKings ads. I don't know what you want me to do.
I wasn't gambling. Well, I was gambling. But if you just chop it up with me, you would see. It's like the bank fraud wasn't as serious as...
That it wasn't actually $24 million that we're missing. It was only the 16. Only the 16.
I mean, how desperately relieved is Major League Baseball to sit here and see federal authorities saying, Shohei's a victim here, bank fraud, all of these things, because just imagine the scandal that would be Shohei Ohtani gambling on baseball through a third party. The biggest star the sport has had in I don't know how many years.
On the league's arguably best and most famous, well, maybe not most famous, Yankees would have something to say about that, but they win it. The Dodgers win a hell of a lot more than the Yankees of late.
It would be, it's terrible to say this because players can commit domestic assault, right? Domestic violence, and they'll get suspended for X amount of games and then come back and play. Like all sorts of horrible crimes, yet it is a fact that is what would be the worst case scenario for Major League Baseball would be if they found Shohei Ohtani played any part in gambling on baseball via a third party.
Now, because he didn't miss time, I'll be honest. I put on Dodgers games for the first time. I went and actively watched Shohei. I've seen Shohei Ohtani highlights and stuff like that. We all get the Sports Center push notifications and things when he does something ridiculous. I'm aware of how good of a baseball player he is, but I'd be lying to you if I ever said I put on an Angels game to watch Shohei Ohtani. It's like the Morgan Wallen thing where he throws the chair off Broadway. It's only going to help his PR.
Yep.
Like there being scandal around Shohei Ohtani and him still being an active player made me put on the Dodgers games and be like, all right, how are they going to talk about this? How are they going to cover this? And he's also a spectacular baseball player that can play both ways and is arguably the best athlete in baseball that we've ever seen.
What's crazier, the Shohei story or Jonte Porter story?
Shohei seems more scandalous because of the amounts of money that are associated with it.
Harder to believe, too, on how did this happen?
It's probably still Shohei. Because I want to say, just the dumb factor of Jonte Porter giving out information and then betting solely. How many people you think in the world are betting Jonte Porter unders anywhere?
Literally betting against
not
himself.
Michael Porter, not the more famous Porter, Jonte Porter, okay?
I remember they were both high-profile, 5-star recruits. That was a huge get for Konzo Martin at Mizzou at the time. They didn't do much with it.
His back screwed up.
They made the tournament. And, they didn't do a whole lot, as is the case for most of Konzo's stops. But
unnecessary shot.
It was unnecessary. They were a big deal coming out of high school, and it's crazy how these things play out.
Coming up next, everything Titans coaches said about Will Levis and how the young quarterback is handling the offseason. We talked about this, putting together the Titans roster championship foundation and Will Levis being an unknown. Well, he's had a lot of things said about him. He's weighed in on his offseason himself as well, and you'll hear all of that coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken here on 104.5 The Zone. You want to tell people what happened, Jackson?
We just recorded a promo. You were still out of 1 and 3.
What does 1 and 3 mean? Nobody knows what the hell that means. Jackson?
You were in recording mode. Don't yell at me. This is day one. This is supposed to be the honeymoon.
Don't raise your voice at me. Nobody would have noticed anything. But
I'm still working out the kinks of this new situation, all right? I'm very uncomfortable that Lucas is going to be in studio with me for the foreseeable future. Don't love that.
It is early. It's still a little kinky.
I'm still trying. Well, kinky is adding a third to the bedroom, which we were trying to figure out whether this is a throuple, a threesome, or something else. We'll work and see. Now I can make the sex jokes with you right in front of me. I can physically see Lucas's face blushing now when I make sex jokes. That makes me very happy. But Jackson is the unknown element in the middle of all this. We're still working out the technical side of it. How does it feel to be the person that I'm going to yell at instead of Lucas on a regular basis now?
I think you'll still yell at Lucas a good bit.
I agree with that assessment. Although this is probably going to be a good thing for our relationship. There's less things that I will be prone to yell at you about, and there'll be less things for you to be annoyed with me about.
He can handle it.
I'm just afraid you're both going to team up on me.
Well, that's the one thing that you don't have to worry about. It's very rare that you get us aligned on anything. Anyway, the one thing that we can be aligned on is that Will Levis is critically important to the Titans and their success in the immediate, in their success for the future, and whatever steps of consequence that he makes, how important that is for him and the new administration, head coach, GM, and their respective staffs, how important that is for everybody involved with this organization to try and make sure that they can keep their jobs for the foreseeable future. Because the timelines on this stuff, how long do you think a GM and head coach should get? How many years do you think that they should get to turn a thing around? I think that you don't get more than 3 years in the NFL.
The context matters. Like, the New England Patriots are in a very different situation than the Tennessee Titans are under a first-year coach. How much more bare bones are the Patriots right now than the Titans, who are spending and making moves in free agency like a team that looks like it's going for it, taking big swings?
Well, now the problem, if you're a Patriots fan, is that you keep losing things like Calvin Ridley and last year DeAndre Hopkins, because they're trying to make these moves, the Patriots. Patriots just can't land anybody. So it is a different discussion. It's not for a lack of effort. It's just that they come away from the free agency period looking around and being like, what the hell happened to our wide receiver core that we thought we were going to have? Oh, you mean Tennessee got them instead with the bleep? So with that said, Will Levis is the straw that stirs the drink, right? Everybody's success or failure is going to be defined by Will Levis. And his coaching staff talked a lot about him last year as far as the projection for this thing goes. Now, I think the leash is shortened on everybody around here, Lucas, for one specific reason. Will Levis does not have a fifth-year option on his contract. Will Levis it's good for Will Levis because he'll get the payday faster than will C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young because he doesn't have that team control element to him if he succeeds, if he is worthy of a second contract, whether that's here or elsewhere. But I think ultimately, for Will Levis, the timeline really ramps up around here for everybody, for Brian Callahan, for Rand Carthon, for everybody involved with making the Titans go. So, speaking of Brian Callahan, he was asked specifically about Will Levis as a leader and the things that he's noticed so far, having worked with him in person now for a couple of weeks.
You know, I want Will to be him. He's got to do it in his own way, and you can't make people do anything that's outside of their character or doesn't come across as genuine. And I think Will does a really good job of staying true to who he is. And there's obviously things along the way that I think are that I'll think are important, and I'll make sure that I convey those to him. But I'm not going to ask him to go be anybody that he's uncomfortable being. I need Will to just be the best version of himself. And he's got a job to do as the leader of the offense, as a leader of the football team. And I think he understands that. And I think that's the biggest part, is understanding what your role is, and that you have to be visible. People have to see you. You have to make sure you're building the same relationships that I have to build as the head coach. You're building them with everybody across the team because the team needs to see you and ultimately have a relationship where they believe in you. And I think that obviously went a long way doing that last year. in his time that he played as the starter. I think he started to realize how important it was. I've been very pleased with his demeanor, his actions as he started the offseason program. And again, we're in our first few days, but really excited about where he's headed in that role. And so again, we have a lot of resources here. I told all the quarterbacks the other day that one of the unique parts about playing quarterback in the NFL is you have a staff of people that have a ton of experience. We've got guys from all over the league on both sides of the ball. Use our intellectual property, ask them questions, talk to guys, and if you can find something that helps you, there's a lot of people here that are willing to do that. So I think that he understands that there's a seeking nature to where he's at right now as well, is trying to find out all the information he can from every which way he can find it.
It's never been a question for me since he's assumed that role from Ryan Tannehill as to whether he's capable of the leadership element of this. He's very personable. You weren't with me when we did the sit down with him at training camp, but he seemed pretty relaxed. Everything that you heard about him in the pre-draft process, save Mike Giardi coming out and reporting on the idea that he had a lot of good interactions with teams that weren't reported on, because a lot of the pre-draft stuff around Levis was teams didn't necessarily love the demeanor, and I'm very confused as to how, unless he got like overly tight in these meetings, unless he remember Ben Jones being in here last week and talking about the idea of a job interview, that they're looking for certain things from a quarterback that they're not looking for from an offensive lineman, and how you talk and how you engage and how you break down tape and your yes sir, no ma'am, the whole situation. Like, it's much more rigid for the quarterbacks, and I don't know how Will Levis did, but a lot of it was kind of the teams didn't love it. Every interaction that I've had with him in a year of covering him and having him on the radio show and seeing him in settings on the field and off the field, he seems to have that down pat. He understands the responsibility of being visible. And maybe that comes from being a more mature prospect coming out of college, because he was older, right? 24 years old. There's a big difference between Richardson at 20 and Will Levis at 24. I'm sure we could all speak to the amount of life experience that you have at 20 and 24 and 28 as you continue to go through your life. The way that he immediately commanded the respect of players much his senior. DeAndre Hopkins is in a completely different stage of his life than is Will Levis. But the way that those two were able to figure out the best way to communicate, the best way to engage one another, to be able to understand, hey, I may get into you after a play because I wanted this and you ran that, or I ran this expecting you to throw it here. They have that balance figured out, and Hopkins has a great demeanor to balance out Levis when he's red-faced, screaming, and neck veined all up and down.
It doesn't mean he can't develop there, though. Like, you'd much rather have a quarterback begin at that point than be a very reserved guy that doesn't really want to ruffle those feathers and doesn't want to say something, even if a guy's been in the league 10, 15 years.
Mariota.
Sure. So you would rather what Levis is, right? Where, it's rather say whoa than go, to use just a tired catchphrase. But doesn't mean he can't come back to the mean in some areas. And I hear Blaine talk about this all the time. Like, I want my quarterback. I don't need my quarterback to be the rah-rah, neck vein, pop-in guy. How often do you see quarterbacks in the middle of a pregame huddle, right? Like in that Jeffrey Simmons role before a game, just as an example. I think Drew Brees would do it.
Brees did.
For the Saints. But I've heard Blaine talk about this a lot. I want my quarterback to be measured. The calm, cool, and collected Steve McNair taking a nap before the game, just a little grin on his face. Like, no, we got it. We got it.
Well, he's not that. It's like, what's the Joe Montana story about him being in the middle of the Super Bowl and pointing out to the huddle that John Candy's on the sideline and everybody's all hot and tense.
John Candy's here.
Maybe like, hey, you guys see John Candy?
But like, who is like that right now in the NFL? That Levis sort of demeanor that we've seen, that
Josh Allen.
Fired up.
Josh Allen is 100% that. Josh Allen is red-faced. He's screaming. He's beating his chest after he runs for first downs. He's helicoptering in between tackles. This is Mahomes. Mahomes is intense.
Yeah, Mahomes is intense.
You could find a number of these guys. Here's the thing, and it comes down to, and talk to coaches about this all the time and evaluators about this all the time. Sure, you want to continue to improve and develop and grow and mature, but you want to be careful not to coach some of this stuff out of them if this is the thing that makes them go, right? Josh Allen still has plenty of what the bleep Wyoming is happening out there on the field. But that is some of the stuff that makes Josh Allen special. It doesn't mean that he's always going to play within structure. Doesn't mean that he's always going to be that kind of reserved, calm, cool, and collected demeanor that sometimes your teammates need you to be. He possesses that. He can do that. He's very measured in his comments at the podium, for sure. And Levis is too. Levis isn't out here giving like quotes that are inflammatory or anything like that. He's just inflammatory on the sideline.
Yeah, he's not that way. On the podium, he's a very normal dude.
Yeah, but he still is more forthcoming than like Tannehill or Mariota. He'll be more upfront with you, and I'm sure they'll PR the hell out of that and pare that down over the years, which I hope not, but you know. So, like Mahomes, for example. Mahomes and Allen are great examples of this because these are, I'm not saying that Will Levis is the next Josh Allen or the next Patrick Mahomes, but neither were they when they came out of college. You had optimism. You had hope about putting them in the right systems and seeing them develop. But there are still things to their game that don't make them outright perfect players, but that you can't take out of their game or coach out of their game for risking diminishing them as players. Mahomes moves a lot in the pocket unnecessarily, and he avoids sacks. He doesn't take sacks very often. He's great at eluding pressure. But when you watch, and this is something that Cosell brought my attention to a couple of years ago when we started doing, Chiefs and Titans breakdowns, Mahomes will just start to drift. And you're looking at him and saying, well, what are you doing? You're running right into the pressure. You're making life harder on your offensive line. But he needs that frenetic movement to be able to make some of the crazy off-platform throws or in-movement throws or unconventional throws that you see him make. The best version of Mahomes has been in the last 2 years, not just because they won the Super Bowl, but because he's dialed down the frenetic motion a lot. He's playing within structure a lot. He's playing a more refined, more developed version of the quarterback than he ever has at any point in his career while still having the high-level athletic traits that make him Patrick Mahomes. That's the biggest difference to me between Mahomes and Allen. Allen is probably the better athlete. Allen is probably the better toolsy player, the higher level or higher ceiling. But Mahomes has been able to package it all together over the course of years, and it did take him years to get to the version that's just now won back-to-back Super Bowls. Will Levis is in that same vein to me. I think it's going to be a couple of years that we see this play out. I don't think that Will Levis is going to be defined solely by this year. I feel Treylon Burks' Titans career is very much in that vein. And, of course, he's 2 years Levis' senior. Well, actually, I don't know that he's 2 years older than Levis, but 2 draft classes Levis' senior. No, one draft class. Levis was 23. Treylon was 24. Or 22, excuse me.
Let's hear from Nick Holtz.
When you're around Will, he kind of sometimes doesn't give you a lot. He's kind of very stoic at times. And so you're kind of, all right, is this guy? And now that we've been in, that was just as our, handshake meetings, get to know you, tell me about yourself. And now that we're kind of into the football, you really see his brain working and his process through it. And he asks great questions. It's only been 2 days and he comes back with the questions in the morning. So he'll come in and, hey, what was this? What were we saying this? Why did this mean? And so you see how it's all hitting him. And then you see his opinions. He's got thoughts on, hey, what does this look like? Hey, have you guys done this? And so that's been really cool just to see kind of now that we're getting into the football part, just mentally and in the classroom, how kind of serious he takes it and how much it means to him.
So that's the new Titans offensive coordinator, Nick Holtz. At what point can I stop calling them new? Like Brian Callahan's not the new head coach anymore.
Yes, he is.
Still?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so that's Nick Holtz talking about Will Levis. And then Holtz went on to describe the way that Levis takes feedback on some of the constructive criticisms that they're handing out to him.
Or provides feedback.
Here's what I'll say about Will. As he's just, Brian and I was up there the first day, and so was I, and as we start talking to him, because we want this to be very conversational with the quarterbacks, quarterback meetings, things like that, where we need their feedback because they're the ones who have to do it. So you see him giving us the feedback, but then even already in the first 2 days, he's been turning around to the other guys. He sits right, 3 quarterbacks sit right in the front row, and hey, what about this? Hey, that's like this, or giving them old, kind of mind taps of things that would relate to what they've done in the past or how he sees a route. We taught some routes this morning, and he turned around and gave a couple guys, hey, when you do that on that step, I'm going to think that you're coming open. So for 2 days in, I don't think you could ask for much more.
So they're pleased with his progress. And, as Holtz said at the time, that was last week, but 2 days in, feel pretty good about things. Levis made an appearance at the Masters. He sat down with Laura Rutledge of ESPN on their set, and Laura was asking him a couple of questions about how the offseason has gone in his own progression, in his own view.
It's really, really cool. I mean, an opportunity to really make my mark as a leader too, which is exciting. New offense to learn, which is something, I've done in the past that I just got to grind and, get down. And other than that, it's, being the guy in the locker room that I need to be and bringing everyone together to make sure that, with this new staff and the new additions that we're making and that our ownership is, the decisions they're making and what they see going forward with the team, it's really, really exciting and excited to do my job.
How have you seen yourself evolve as a leader so far?
I think just getting more comfortable, and I think that comes with how you play on the field, really. It's one of those things where, you got to earn your respect, before you can kind of step into that more vocal, more active role. And it's just something you got to naturally feel out, and something that I'm growing in every day.
Will Levis sitting down with Laura Rutledge of ESPN on their Masters coverage. Jimmy Wyatt doing well to scoop that audio, which is why it sounds a bit tinny, but courtesy of Jimmy's Twitter handle, @JWyattSports. Doing all the right things, saying all the right things. It's kind of like their offseason, right? I've got very few complaints about what the Titans have done so far. I think they're checking all the boxes that they need to. Whether all of the things that need to come to fruition actually do, it remains to be seen. But they're doing all the right things to make sure that Levis is in the best possible position to succeed, and I think that he has not treated that responsibility lightly. I also appreciate, Lucas, that he doesn't seem to take it like so seriously. You want your quarterback to be I don't know. Like Blaine has a different perspective on this than I do, and Blaine has the better perspective on this than I do because he's been in locker rooms with quarterbacks, seeing the best kind of demeanor that rallies the team around him, that keeps the team level. The cliche, not too high, not too low, the whole thing. But I like that he shows that looseness at times. I like that he has that energy he gives. You want him to keep himself safe. That's the biggest concern, that he's not going to get too far ahead of himself to where all of a sudden it's a desperation play in a game that really doesn't mean anything because you're already mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but you're Will Levis, you love football, and you're going to go out there and make a play for your team. And you get helicoptered by 2 Texans defenders, and you get up afterwards because you've made the first down and you're pounding your chest. Was it Colts or Texans? I can't remember the helicopter tackle.
Colts, I believe.
Colts sounds right.
I believe it was Colts at home.
So either way, you make the first down, you sit up because your adrenaline's pumping, you do the first down signal, and you get up afterwards, and then the next couple of days you're feeling banged up or you've got an ungodly bruise on your shoulder or your throwing motion's affected because you've done this thing. And in real time, it galvanizes your team, but it really doesn't help you long term. He's got to figure out that balance for himself. There's nothing anybody can do, really, besides, Callahan, Holtz, Mason Rudolph to an extent, leading by example, still a veteran presence while not being like an old head, like not Tannehill at 35 or 36. And Tannehill, I'm sure, has imparted some of that wisdom to him. And it's not just for Will Levis, it's for Malik Willis too. He's as interesting a player, even if he doesn't make this roster this offseason. I don't know that I'm more interested to follow along with a guy that is fringe than Malik Willis. I want to see if he can actually make a difference with a new system, with a new coaching staff. So hyper-focused on quarterback development.
Malik, who is much more of that reserved, kind of quiet guy in the group. Like, Levis flips a switch.
He does.
When he's on the field. And a lot of athletes do that in all sorts of sports. Like, I talk to Nashville SC players all the time that are just like the kindest people to interact with. And then you just see their demeanor on the field, and it is 0 to 100. But with Will, like, when I brought that up, that question, okay, who else is like, what other quarterbacks bring that intensity? Your first name was Josh Allen. Does that not work against Josh Allen sometimes?
Sure.
Like, criticisms against Josh Allen, doesn't really protect himself in the run
quarterback.
Game. YOLO, yes. Like, just launching stuff downfield, even if something more conservative is there. And at times, Pat Mahomes, like with what you were talking about, the issues he would run into a couple years ago. So it's just about reeling that stuff in that I think even Josh Allen is working on at this point in his career. And he's about to start his 6th season?
Sounds right.
2018 draft pick.
It's a continual process. Like I said, Mahomes and Allen are still working on this. They're not finished players by any stretch of the imagination, even if they are the best in the business right now. And you could make the argument for Josh Allen or not Josh Allen, whatever.
Mahomes is just so stupid talented.
On top of being very, very skilled and now playing quarterback the way that quarterback is meant to be played. He can be the YOLO quarterback with success and also be the game manager when he needs to be. Easier said than done. Last call for phone calls. If you got them, 615-737-1045 is the number. We'd be happy to have your participation. A quick reminder, the 1045 The Zone Golf Classic is right around the corner. May 17th is on the horizon. You can still get your teams for a great day at Greystone Golf Club at 1045thezone.com. You know, Slay and Brent are going to be out there on the course. Does Ramon golf? I feel like I see Ramon in a cart every year, but I don't know if he's actually golfing or not. Either way, we'll all be out there. We'll all be doing the shows. It's going to be a great time. We always appreciate the fine folks at Greystone for having us. So 1045thezone.com to get your team today and tee off with us on Friday, May the 17th. Last call for phone calls next. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. The last segment of the day for us before we turn it over to the pros. Blaine and Mickey coming up next. You got 3HL. After that, is everybody in studio? Or I always feel like it's a question as to whether 3HL is actually working from work or not, or if they're out somewhere in the wild at a scoreboard or a Twin Peaks near you.
They're here.
Okay, very good. We are here in this new iteration. People have been asking many questions. Lucas tried to railroad me out the gate on the first day of his new promotion. By locking me out of the studio, changing all the graphics to the Lucas Panzica show, putting Bert in my seat, which still is soaked in the smell of cigarette ash, and I've not forgiven either of you for yet. Jackson is going to be a daily occurrence around here now at this point, and we're already scheming ways to basically cost me money to Jackson's benefit. Love that for me. How do we feel like the first day of this has gone? Because people are very happy for Lucas, as they should be, in the F&M Bank chat. You're being congratulated on your promotion. Do you consider this a promotion? Because you're going to have to work harder, and it's going to make me lazier. I don't think that's a benefit to you.
I haven't figured that part out yet.
Yeah, we'll see. But Jackson, I want 3 new-look BR show observations on day one of this ill-fated experiment that eventually we're going to crash into the ground.
Number one, the one I think is the funniest, is you've looked in here so long that when you're talking to Lucas, you will look directly at me, and we will make eye contact, and I won't know what to do. I'm like, does he want me to respond to him? What is he? He's clearly talking to Lucas. Why is he looking at me?
It's true. My whole setup for 4 years almost has been so that I can look at Lucas and make eye contact because he's in one room and I'm in the other, and we're separated by 3 foot of glass. The funny thing is I can't actually see anything back there because this ring light just blinds me every day. So now it's just defaulted to me staring ahead. No matter if it's Ben Jones or Lindsey Rowley or whoever the hell we bring in studio with me, I'm always staring at whoever's sitting in what is supposed to be Lucas's seat.
So you're just staring into space. Jackson is just on the receiving end of it.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not staring at anything in particular. You're just the general direction that I'm used to staring at, and now you're in here, and it's weird for me.
Can you even see me?
No, I can't.
What am I wearing? What color shirt am I wearing?
Yeah, what color shirt am I wearing?
I can't tell what color shirt that you're wearing because not only is the ring light, I still can't. Is it gray?
It's gray.
It's white.
No.
It's white with like a navy dot thing.
What's your second? You mean buttons, but what's your second observation?
No, I don't mean buttons. It's got a pattern.
Keep it moving.
All right, number 2, organization is not Buck's strong suit.
We knew that
What
already.
gave that away? What happened? What did I do today that caused the show to be derailed by my lack of organization?
You were late when you were trying to be late. You were late to being late this morning.
I was later than I planned to be.
That's true. It's like we hit 10:06, 10:07, and I'm like, I didn't plan to do this for like 10 minutes. I thought we were going to do it like for 2 before you busted in here.
Now, part of that was strategic. I decided because our boss came in here yesterday trying to give us, basically saying, hey, we should do something funny to make this announcement or whatever that Lucas is going to be in studio for the foreseeable future. And I said, yeah, I'll show up late. We'll let Lucas open the show like he normally does when I'm late. And my boss was like, yeah, act like you're late. I said, no. I'm going to be late.
I'm going to be late.
If I'm going to be late, I'm going to go get my coffee. Except when I went to go get my coffee, I was already on schedule to be late. And then the road that I typically take down 14th to get from Germantown to Demumbrian was closed, and I was late to being late.
Are those your observations?
Those are the observations.
Polls.
And now, the polls have to be updated. We've reached a crucial point in the show. It's time to update the polls. Take my hand, get to the chopper. Lucas Panzica will give us the final update. Why am I yelling? It's giving me a headache, but it's only a headache. It's not a tumor. Hasta la vista, baby. I'll be back. Why am I yelling?
Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What is your worst case scenario for the Titans in the draft. Some Titans fan on Twitter says, like that's the name of the Twitter account, some Titans fan, says drafting a wide receiver before a tackle. Worst case scenario at 7 for him.
No, that's dramatic.
Mary Claire says a corner in the first round. JP says taking Brock Bowers or JC Latham at 7 would be his worst case. Smashvillian says just drafting a tight end in the first round.
Why is JC Latham a worst case scenario? You want a tackle, he's a good tackle.
He's a right tackle.
Yeah, but he can play left.
Can he? He never really has.
I mean, he's a bull, man. His footwork is the thing that would concern me because every once in a while you see him get crossed up.
Yeah.
And that's not ideal by better athletes, and I'm sure some veteran pass rushers. Either way, you're going to have moments where your rookie tackle is getting crossed up. But, I don't think that's like a disaster scenario.
I mean, what is worst case? Like Patriots decide they're finally going to go get their wide receiver, and then Marvin Harrison's off the board at 4, and then the Chargers do indeed take Joe Alt, and suddenly you're sitting there where it's Rome Odunze or Brock Bowers or second best left tackle. Is that worst case?
If you get outside of basically the top 2 tackles, I would start to get a little nervous.
Yeah. What team do you not want to see Brock Bowers land on? Karen says the Texans, but that wouldn't be likely. You're right. Texans don't have a need, although maybe the Texans are in a spot where they could take luxury picks. They're in a luxury pick type of situation.
Yeah, that's true. The Colts is my answer. I think that particular offense would lend itself well to Brock Bowers' skill set, provided Anthony Richardson could stay healthy. I think Shane Steichen is very creative, and I think that would be a matchup nightmare. Given that the Titans don't have any inside linebackers that can really cover him, you're looking for some kind of solution to make sure that you're fortified there in the draft.
Texans don't even have a first-round pick now anyway, right? After the trade with Minnesota?
That is correct.
Yeah, so that's probably a non-factor. What is the ceiling for this Preds team in the playoffs? 32.7% of the audience are going all the way. Stanley Cup Finals. 20.8%.
That many of you.
Yeah, 20.8% say the Western Conference Finals. 15% say first round is the ceiling. 3% say second round.
I feel like second round is attainable. Hockey's random, but I think this group is skilled enough to overcome deficits if they present themselves. We heard Lindsey Rowley's analysis about the Canucks being a better matchup than the Dallas Stars, and so they'll have that whenever the schedule gets officially released. I feel like this team should make it through to the second round.
What's been the most interesting thing about the NBA play-in tournament? Jimmy says absolutely nothing. Mike said there's an NBA play-in tournament. # serious question. Kenneth says how far the Warriors have fallen is the most interesting thing.
Yeah, but the Warriors had such a run. I mean, like at a certain point, there's play-in games tonight, by the way. The Bulls and the Heat are tomorrow, both games tomorrow, as a matter of fact, in the NBA. Sacramento, New Orleans. It sucks that Zion's done for the year, it looks like. They just cannot.
And Jimmy Butler as well.
Yeah, for a couple of weeks, I'd be surprising to see Miami make it, although Chicago's not very good.
Kobe White was last night. That was, I actually have been entertained by the play-in tournament so far. That game last night was awesome between the Heat game and the Sixers game. And Kobe White popping off for a career-high 42 was fun to watch as well.
Why does the NBA have that reaction? Oh, I'm not watching the NBA play-in game at all. Oh, there's an NBA play-in tournament happening. What is people's deal with basketball lately? I don't understand.
Here it does. Here it certainly does.
So weird.
Those are the polls.
What else are you watching right now? Are you just doing mock drafts, sitting in your underwear at home, doing mock drafts over and over again while watching your soaps? I don't get it.
Yep.
Okay.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Blaine and Mickey are next. Have a great evening. One more primetime show tonight. I'll see you at 8 p.m.